Now, on Wednesday, the UN Security Council passed a draft resolution condemning Iran for its attacks on the Gulf. That resolution, though, did not make any mention of the U.S. and Israeli bombings of Iran, which prompted Tehran's ambassador to the UN to label it absurd. We're going to talk a bit more about this now with France 24's Leila Jacinto, who joins me on the set. Leila, what does this tell us about the Middle East conflict and the effect it's having on the world?
Everything. It tells us how we got here, where we are right now, and the difficulties of getting out of here. Well, basically, as you said, this was the first votes on the conflict in the Middle East since the war broke out at the UN Security Council. So on Wednesday, we had the 15-member body, which includes the 5 permanent members, vote on 2 resolutions. Okay, one resolution was approved, and the other failed. And we have the first resolution, which was approved. This is UNSC 2817. This basically condemns Iran's egregious attacks on its neighbors. And it's important, as you say, to note that it failed to mention the US-Israeli strikes that prompted this retaliation. So this resolution was sponsored by Bahrain, and it was co-sponsored by more than 135 countries, which gives you a sense of the real global impact of this resolution. You rarely have so many co-sponsors. Nobody, it was passed, which means nobody voted against it, right? There were 2 abstentions, Russia and China. Russia and China, of course, mentioned that it was hypocritical. It failed to mention the US-Israeli strikes in the first place, and it talked about double standards. So what you're seeing here is really what ails the international community today. Because what is more interesting, actually, from an analytical point of view, is the resolution that was not adopted. And that resolution was sponsored by Russia. So we have the breakup of the vote. Basically, in this vote, we had, it was not approved because the US voted against it. The US, of course, has the veto. Russia and China approved it. But what is really interesting is to see all the countries who were the fence sitters, the countries that just abstained. They did not vote against it. So this includes the permanent members, France and the UK, as well as, very interestingly, Bahrain, which is a Gulf member. It's the only Gulf member that is currently on the UN Security Council. So Bahrain, in a sense, was representing the Gulf countries, which have been very seriously affected, bearing the brunt of this war. But Bahrain could not approve this resolution, basically slamming the US and Israeli strikes on Israel. And therein lies the heart of the issue.
Well, so why exactly is it so difficult for the Gulf states to condemn these strikes, these US-Israeli strikes?
Well, in one line, it's oil for security, right? These Gulf states in the post-war order that was established are essentially in an oil for security deal, which is why they have so many U.S. military bases and U.S. installations, military installations on their lands. So in exchange for all this energy that it is producing, the U.S. provides the security. The Iran war has blown a hole through all of this because it's these very installations that is making these Gulf countries a target. And the source of their economic might, the energy, is what's blocking the global order today. Why can't Bahrain, simply say that this act, which has prompted the global economic, to come to a standstill, is basically because they depend on the US for security. Those interceptors that are bringing down very cheap Iranian drones cost billions of dollars, and Iran is paying virtually 5 times less for all these attacks that it is conducting. So it underscores the lack of diplomatic leeway that these Persian Gulf states have. And, this is the base on which it's getting very difficult to address this issue going forwards in the future because Iran has asymmetry on its side, and that's its goal. And that's why it is blocking the international global order right now.
Leila, thank you.